What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Saturday, so time to go over the biggest ADP changes of this last week. Last week, we went over 7 names that I felt would rise in ADP. This week, we got 6 of the 7 right, all of Parris Campbell, Romeo Doubs, Jahan Dotson, Justin Fields, Austin Hooper, and James Cook all saw their ADP increase, with Campbell actually being the second biggest riser this week, and we will talk about that coming up. The only one I got wrong was Brian Robinson, though I think it's more just because it was a quiet news cycle for him. We really got no news from Robinson, so there was no reason for people to jump on the bandwagon there. It was actually McKissick that saw his ADP rise. I still maintain that while Robinson isn't as good as some will assume, I think he's a little bit overrated, he's still going a little bit too late in drafts. If the public thinks that he's worth, basically, if people are thinking he's worth a late 16th round pick, that's totally fine if that's what you believe. But you can't have it both ways. Like, either he's a great pick where he's going, or Gibson's a great pick where he's going in the mid 6th round. But they can't both be bad in those ranges. I feel like you just have to pick one. If you think that Brian Robinson is not someone of concern to Gibson, then you're smashing that ADP in the middle of the 6th round for Gibson. That is a phenomenal value if you don't think Robinson's a good pick late. But if you think that Gibson deserves to be a mid 6th round pick because of Robinson, you have to be drafting Robinson in the mid to late 16th round. That's an absurd ADP if you really think he has this much of an impact on Gibson. Gibson in this situation was going in the 2nd round last season. For him to drop into the mid 6th, something had to have happened. It's got to be Robinson. So I think you have to pick a side there. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to leave your draft with each one of them, but pick a side. Either you like Gibson or you like Robinson, because one of them is a huge value at their ADP. So as for the risers, we did not predict this coming week. The biggest riser is Gronk. He's up nearly around into the mid 10th. I think people are just gaining confidence that he's going to be back with the Bucs this season. Though, as of recording this, that has not been confirmed yet. I think his ADP is completely fair. Obviously, I'd make sure if you're doing a draft right now, you're probably doing it on Underdog. I don't really think that many people are doing redraft leagues in early June. But if you're doing it on Underdog, just make sure you draft 3 tight ends. You don't want to lose the league just because you took 2 and then Gronk doesn't play, and now you have 1, and you're just not going to win with 1. So make sure you draft 3. I would say, though, if you're one of the very few people who are drafting right now for a redraft league, I am absolutely fine. If you only want to take 1 tight end, you can just do double late tight ends. That's still optimal. But if you only wanted 1 and you wanted to take Gronk in the 10th round, I am completely fine with that and then not drafting anyone else because it's so early. If we happen to get in August and he doesn't return to the team, just drop him and you'll be able to find someone on free agency. Obviously, you'll take a hit, but it's not the end of the world. So it's totally fine drafting him there. I'm completely fine with his ADP. It just comes down to, what do you think? If he comes back, it's going to be a good pick where he's going. Next up, like I alluded to before, Parris Campbell up 10 spots into the 16th round. As we predicted last week, it's really just the Colts camp has had very positive reports. Literally everything. They say Matt Ryan's doing well. The offense is clicking. They're really, really excited about this season. And if Campbell can stay healthy, he's going to just obliterate his ADP. I would expect his ADP to continue rising over the next few weeks, assuming he stays healthy. As soon as he goes down with an injury, people are hopping off, though. He is someone that has burned people in the past. He cannot stay healthy. And as soon as someone sees, he has a hamstring injury, everyone's going to jump off. He's going to go back to being a 17th round pick. So know the ADP could drop easily. But listen, he's like the last or second to last pick in your draft. I think it's worth a shot because if he stays healthy, he's going to shatter his ADP. Next biggest riser is unfortunately Kadarius Toney. Trend with the Giants players does continue. Toney up 8 spots, Wandale up 5 spots, Daniel Jones up 4 spots, Saquon up 2, and Golladay up 1. I still have all of them listed as a value except for Kadarius Toney, but Toney isn't overvalued. He's just correctly priced in drafts, so still absolutely someone you can go after. I'm really hoping we don't get a Mike Williams situation here where we love a player at their ADP, but then they rise month after month, and then they're no longer a value. We've been all over Giants players this entire offseason, and as long as you've been doing drafts on Underdog, you have been able to capitalize on that, and that's why we do drafts right now. ADPs are much sharper in August. And while you can still draft then because we have full information and so you're not having wasted picks, right now it's possible. We're trying to maybe guess at the end of rotations, and so you might just take a running back in the 17th round who ends up getting cut and not being on a team, and that's going to hurt. You're not going to do that in August because we know rotations and everything. Also, there's chances for injuries to happen, all that stuff. So there's still reason to draft in August, but you have an edge drafting right now because we've done a very, very good job at predicting who is severely undervalued. That edge is not always going to be there, though, as we saw with Mike Williams and as we're starting to see with Giants players. So take advantage while you can. Use promo code FFA on Underdog. They're going to match your first deposit up to $100. That is a free $100 that they will match, which will get you into honestly just more than enough drafts this summer. Then just use the Underdog specific rankings that I have on the site, upload them directly to Underdog, and start crushing your drafts because everyone is starting to catch on to these values. But there's still values right now. Try to get them in before that happens. But anyways, Giants players, rising ADP, probably going to continue. Hopefully not to the point where we can't draft them anymore. Darrel Williams, up 8 spots. No surprise here. I included him in yesterday's highest upside video for a reason. He's a fantastic value right now. I would expect his ADP to keep rising, but I still think he's a good pick where he's going. Jamison Crowder, up 7 spots. This is not one that I predicted. He's now going in the 11th round. Did a quick search. I was like, I don't think I missed any news. It's really just because everyone on Twitter has been hyping up Crowder this week. Their general argument for everyone that's been hyping him up is that Beasley always, or at least the last 2 years, has like outperformed his ADP. And since Crowder also plays in the slot, he's going to do the same. That's just the generic argument. One caution I'd make there, like that is honestly a fine argument to make, just that it's a fantastic offense. The slot receiver does get targeted at a very high rate in this offense. You've got a very good quarterback throwing you the ball. And listen, Beasley and Crowder are talented wide receivers. They're not scrubs. So I get the argument. One caution again that I would make though is that Beasley only had like 5, I think it's about 5 touchdowns these last 2 seasons. And while his like fantasy finish at the end of the season is really, really high compared to his ADP, he was never actually someone you were starting. So I think I understand this more from a best ball take where you just get these random spikes, you have him up for an ADP, and he just gets you points. From a season-long standpoint, I pumped the brakes a little bit because like when was the last time you were consistently starting Cole Beasley in fantasy? Because everyone's saying, oh, Crowder could be the next Cole Beasley. But like when was that really a person you were starting? Like he'd go out there and get 10 for 100 and a touchdown one week, and 3 straight weeks have like 1 or 2 receptions. He was not someone you could consistently start, and I kind of think that might be the same with Crowder. And also, just because they play the same position doesn't mean they're going to post the same numbers. Shakir is probably going to be used some this season, not a ton, but probably some. And Gabriel Davis might just command more targets than Emmanuel Sanders did, so it's not just like a one-for-one thing. And again, like I understand Crowder late, but you know, even if he is Beasley, that doesn't mean he's some phenomenal pick. I think that before jumping on him, I would just wait for camp to happen, see if they do have really good chemistry, see if Josh Allen is targeting Crowder at a really high rate. And if that is happening, then I think we can boost his ADP. But I don't really think he deserves to go up like nearly a full round. I guess more like a half round, like 7 spots, just because he might be Beasley. Like I think that's just a little bit of a weak argument. Last 2 we'll go over today for risers at least are Sutton and Etienne, both up about a half a round, which is frustrating because I love both of them. You never like to see the players that you love jump up a half a round or a full round or a few weeks. Etienne is still a value. I have him as running back 17. He's now the running back 19, so getting less of a value than he was before, but still a good pick. Sutton is now appropriately valued as the wide receiver 19. I'll give the exact same take as before with the Giants players. Hopefully you've been able to take them at really, really nice discounts on Underdog, but pay attention to these rises in ADP. We loved Mike Williams 2 months ago, but his ADP continues to drop. He's like the 28th player in drafts right now. That's crazy. He's almost going to be a 2nd round pick soon. Used to be going like the 5th or 6th round. Watch ADPs. I will start fading Travis Etienne if I need to, especially if the ADP starts to get in like the top, 13, 14 running backs. Take him as a value right now, but watch the ADPs. On to the biggest fallers. Biggest faller by like 2.5 miles is Deshaun Watson. I personally have him as a quarterback 28, so he's got a bit more to fall before I'm going to consider him. And honestly, I'd be shocked if I click his name this season. I think people are starting to understand that it's pretty much impossible for him not to be suspended at this point. How long that suspension ends up being is a complete wild card. Like, I don't even really have a good guess for you guys. What I'll say is I'd be surprised if it's less than 6 weeks. And if you gave me an over-under at 8 games of a suspension, I would take the over. But that is all I can guess. I really have no idea. Again, this is Roger Goodell. If you're trying to predict what he's going to do, it's a losing battle over time. Just see what he does and go from there. But again, I wasn't drafting him before. I don't think you should either. Way too risky. And I'm not going to be drafting him this season. With that, we've seen a fall in ADP for all Browns players. Cooper, Bell, Donovan Peoples-Jones have all fallen between 5 and 7 spots. Chubb, Hunt going down about 2 spots each. No real analysis needed there. If people are starting to get concerned about Watson missing time, that's going to translate into the skill players. There's really just no other take there. That's just what's happening. It's not like these individual players have been hurt or performing bad. It's just that like if Watson's not there, obviously the skill players are less valuable. Zach Wilson's down 7 spots. This one's odd to me. He was a faller last week too, and I don't really get it that much. Like, I don't know what news is coming out recently that's changed your opinion to where he's fallen like a round and a half in the last week or so, or 2 weeks, I guess. He's got the skill players around him now, and the team is going to let him sling the rock. So why is his ADP just cratering? Like, maybe I'm missing something, but I have his quarterback 21. He's 23rd by ADP. If you're looking for a second quarterback late, I think he is a perfectly fine option to go to. Final faller we'll go over today before we try and predict some of next week's risers is George Pickens. He's down another half round as the 73rd wide receiver off boards. And, usually I don't necessarily mention people when they get this late, but I wanted to bring him up because I've definitely bullied Pickens this summer. But his ADP is down like 2 rounds over the last month, and he basically falls 5 to 6 spots every single week. And while I'm still not taking him at his current ADP, I wanted to mention him because I have him at 75. So if he's 73 right now, he doesn't have that much farther to drop before I'm going to consider him a value. So keep an eye on his ADP. I know I've brought up a lot of points against him, but that was against him, 2 rounds earlier than he's going now. If he drops another round and we're getting him in like basically the end of the draft, I'm fine taking a shot on him. Again, it was never the talent. I think he's a really good wide receiver. I think he's a lot of upside, but I think people were taking him too early. If he keeps going down, hey, if he's listed as a value in the rankings, he's a value. So if he makes it to the wide receiver like 76, 77, we can start taking him. All right, that's it. We're going to go over for some predictions next week. So here's some players that I think over the next 7 days, when we're talking about this video next week, will be more expensive by ADP. Their ADP will rise. Chris Olave, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cam Akers, Rachaad White, Tim Patrick, and Devonta Parker. Olave, because Michael Thomas is not going to be at camp to start. He is obviously someone that, has a huge target share on this team. And so if people are going to start getting concerned that he might not be 100%, obviously the guy that they gave up an insane amount of draft capital to get is going to be more valuable. Amon-Ra St. Brown, because there are new reports that Jamison Williams might be iffy to start the year. We know that the Lions absolutely love him. They are not going to rush him back. They're going to make sure he's 1,000% healthy before getting him on the field. And if that happens, St. Brown is obviously being undervalued. He's already undervalued anyways. Cam Akers, because Kyren Williams broke his foot, and then Henderson has a soft tissue injury, so he's like the only healthy running back right now on the roster. And also, like, the team showed they preferred an injured Akers over a healthy Henderson last season. So I think people are going to start to realize, like, maybe his ADP shouldn't be dropping, because it is right now. It should probably be rising. So I think he'll go up. Rachaad White, because Fournette showed up to camp a little bit overweight, and there's some reports that maybe you can tell a little bit with how winded he's getting, how he looks. I think that's a little garbage. I think he's going to be totally fine, but the public just loves these like overweight narratives. People coming into camp, out of shape. They just love them. They eat them up. And since people are already willing to kind of fade Fournette, go with White, I think it's going to be easy for people to be like, well, I don't need him. Ooh, look, White. Well, Fournette's overweight. Why don't I grab him? So I think it's garbage. I still think White's a fantastic pick, but this is not why I think White is a really good pick. I wouldn't weight this information at all, but I think people will. Tim Patrick, because Judy is already struggling through an injury, and we know that Patrick is a very talented wide receiver. We actually discussed last year, I believe, at least over the last season or two, he's a player that if we ever got an opportunity to play, and he got an opportunity to get consistent snaps with a good quarterback, we wanted to be all over that. I think he's a really good talent, and that could happen this season. And I think people are going to start to realize that when they see Judy not out there and they see Tim Patrick, the reports are going to be good because he's a good wide receiver. I think people are going to really start hopping on board on him late. So I'd take him. And then finally, Devonta Parker. N'Keal Harry is probably not going to make the team. They're even talking about using him at tight end. He's not going to make the team. Parker seems to be set up to be the very clear X receiver for the Patriots. No, you can never trust Parker, but the news around Mac Jones has been really, really positive so far. And if Parker's out there on every single play, he's being undervalued. And I think people are going to start to realize that. So I think his ADP will rise as well. So that'll do it for this week's biggest ADP changes and a short prediction into next week. Remember, take advantage of current ADP values by signing up for Underdog using promo code FFA. They will match your first deposit up to $100. That's free money, guys. Take advantage of that. And if you combine that with the rankings on the site and the strategy articles, you're going to have a fantastic season. I'll be back with Mock Draft Monday and then going live Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern to do a draft and answer any questions that you guys have for me then. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.